I'm about to take my Ioniq 5 on an international road trip from Salt Lake City, Utah, all the way up to Whistler, Canada. And I'm going to do the whole trip without using any superchargers. So in this video, I'm going to show you the whole EV road trip experience. I'm going to go over exactly how much money I spent EV charging and compare that to gas. I'm going to go over exactly how much time I spent charging. And finally, I'm going to analyze the energy efficiency I get with the car as is. It's really loaded up. It's got like 500 pounds of gear for rock climbing and mountain biking and camping. And also with the bikes on the back here, it's definitely going to be adding some drag on the rear end of the car. I've never done an EV road trip this long before. This is going to be my longest EV road trip by far. So I'm kind of nervous to see how it goes. It's going through some more rural parts of the US. But I'm really excited to get up to Canada to go mountain biking and rock climbing. So let's go! So the entire trip is just under 17 hours one way and over 1,000 miles. I started the trip with the car 100% charged at home, and the first leg of the trip was from Salt Lake City to Heyburn, Idaho, about 2.5 hours and 180 miles. For a majority of this road trip, the temperatures outside were between 70 and 90 degrees, and we typically had the air conditioning on the lowest level of 1. We crossed the border into Idaho and then arrived at our first charging stop, an Electrify America station. The reason I'm not using any Tesla Superchargers is because Hyundai has not sent me the adapter yet to use at Tesla Superchargers. Hyundai started a program to send a free adapter to every Ioniq 5 owner, but the rollout has been really slow, so rather than buying one now, I'm just going to rely on non-Tesla chargers and wait till my free one comes here and use Tesla chargers later. You'll see on this road trip I rely primarily on Electrify America chargers. That's because from my experience they're very reliable, they're pretty low cost, and the charging speed, they charge up to 350 kilowatts. And this Ioniq 5 can charge up to 230, 240, so charges much faster on these Electrify America stations. All the other networks of chargers I've come across have cost more, been less reliable, and charged slower. So I don't see any reason to use chargers other than Electrify America. This car is a 2022 all-wheel drive, so the EPA stated efficiency is 2.9 miles per kilowatt hour. For the first leg of the trip, we averaged exactly that, which is pretty good considering most of it was at 75 miles an hour. There were a few large hills on the way, and an overall net elevation drop of 300 feet. This was an easy stop because there was no one else at the chargers, so we got a fast 350 kilowatt charger. So it's already charging at 220 kilowatts. It's gonna hit 80% in 19 minutes. We went to the bathroom, ate some food, cleaned the windshield, and by the time we did all that, the charger's already up to 80%, so we were on our way again. $22 total. Next leg of the trip was shorter, at only an hour and a half and 116 miles. Went from Heyburn to Mountain Home, Idaho. Probably could have made it to Boise, but decided to stop early for some extra margin. This leg we averaged a little worse at 2.6 miles per kilowatt hour, mostly at 75 miles an hour again, but probably because there was a bit of a headwind while we were driving. Also, after fast charging, the battery heats up and the shutters in the front of the car go from closed to open, and this adds additional drag and reduces range. Driving along the Snake River, there were a lot less hills, it was mostly flat, and a net elevation drop of about 1,000 feet. $15 minutes, $20. 21, up to 80. Next stage was to Huntington, Oregon, 2 hours and 126 miles. We drove through Boise and crossed the border into Oregon. This leg was mostly 70 miles an hour, so efficiency bumped up to 2.9, and there was a net elevation drop of 1,000 feet again. This is the first charging station I've been to where there's one gas pump and 1, 2, 3, 4 chargers. And there's interesting economics where electricity prices stay pretty constant throughout the country, but in remote rural areas like this, gas and diesel prices are very high. And it was already late enough, so we went to find a place to camp on public land. We've taken this car on quite a few gravel roads, and it does surprisingly well on medium clearance roads. I was way too tired to film setting up camp last night, but here's where we parked on some BLM land in Oregon. We slept in the car. So here's the sleeping setup inside. It's quite long, 6.5 feet end to end. It's not very tall, but there's still 6 inches. If you're side sleeping, there's still 6 inches of space between your shoulders and the ceiling. After 10 minutes of rearranging and reshuffling, ready to go back on the road. A new day, so we started leg 4 of the trip to Island City. This is a shorter leg, an hour and 20 minutes and only 90 miles. And it's much more enjoyable to drive during the day because you can look around and see everything and be entertained the whole time. This was the first time we saw someone else charging at a station, and of course it was also an Ioniq. This section was mostly 70 miles an hour, and we averaged 2.8, and also gained a net of 600 feet. While charging, we went to the bathroom, and also made and ate some breakfast. And the charging was a little bit slower because overnight the battery got colder, and I didn't properly precondition the battery before getting to the fast charger. So it was only charging around 152 kilowatts rather than 200 at this percentage. We could have ended the charge a lot earlier, but we were taking our time eating breakfast, so we stopped at 95%. 28 minutes, $20. Next stage was to Yakima, about 3 hours and 180 miles. This section of the drive was very pretty. We drove through the Umatilla National Forest, down to the Columbia River and crossed into Washington, up through the Horse Heaven Hills during harvest season, and then along the Yakima River. This time we even saw 2 other cars charging. This was the best leg yet at 3.0 efficiency, mainly because it was mostly 70 miles an hour and dropped 1,700 feet overall in elevation. 31 minutes, $27. Next section was to Seattle, 150 miles and 2.5 hours on a good day without traffic. This drive was also really fun. We drove past the Enchantment Mountains, and through the Mount Baker Snoqualmie National Forest, and up through Snoqualmie Pass, and down into Seattle. And unsurprisingly ran into some traffic along the way. Averaged 3.0 again, thanks to slower speeds due to traffic, and dropping 1,000 feet overall in elevation. We went to charge in the city, and this was the first time we had to wait for a charger. We waited about 10 minutes for this Ioniq 6 on the left to leave, and when I went up to go look at the machine, I saw that they had charged up to 98% and the charging was free as part of the first 3 years free charging. So if this is you and you have free charging, you don't need to go all the way up to 100%, and if you see someone waiting, be better and just pull out of the way if you're already charged enough for what you need. It's just the courteous and considerate thing to do. This station had the cheapest charging cost yet at 36 cents per kilowatt hour. 14 minutes, $17. We got some dinner and walked around and explored Seattle a little bit. It's a pretty cool city.
Shout out to this K truck.
I want one of these one day. And we actually stopped in Seattle for a day to see a college friend of ours. And we were lucky enough to see his band play a show that night. Kelp Wanted, you should check him out. Next leg of the trip was from Seattle to Bellingham, but we did stop in Index to go rock climbing for a little bit, the real reason why we drove out all this way. It was 3 hours and 150 miles total. This was the best efficiency yet at 3.6. The speeds were mostly 50 to 60 miles an hour and relatively flat. It looks like there's a lot of hills here, but there was only a net increase of 200 feet. This charge started out slower again because the battery wasn't fully warmed up and preconditioned. And I used our handy bike pump because one of our tires had a slow leak and was starting to get low pressure. 33 minutes, $26. Now the final leg of the trip from Bellingham to Whistler. 130 miles and 3 hours without any traffic. So we drove through the last bit of Washington north. Then we crossed the border. Drove over the Port Mahon Bridge. Drove through Surrey, and then we drove along the Sea to Sky Highway from Vancouver up to Whistler. And we were super excited to get our first glimpses of the Stillamis Chief. A 2,000-foot granite cliff jutting right out of the Howe Sound, and this was the main reason we drove all this way, was to climb on the Chief. And then we finally made it to our end destination in Whistler. We averaged 3.5 on this section, mainly due to slower speeds at mostly 50 miles an hour. And there was a big hill at the very end that gained about a net of 2,000 feet total. And before I show you all the nerdy stats and summary of the entire road trip, I feel like I have to show you some of the climbing and biking we did because it was just so much fun. We had an absolute blast, and it was so worth the 2 whole days of driving to get up here. spent 2 weeks in the Whistler Squamish area and had to charge up a few times locally. The first charge was at a Switch Level 2 charger near our condo. I let the car charge overnight and we got 50 kilowatt hours of energy for $9 US. Then I found there was a free Level 2 flow charger in a parking garage near the condo. It was about a 10-minute walk through the woods to get back to the condo. It was actually quite a nice walk through the woods. Very worth it to get free energy. I ended up leaving the car for an overnight charge twice like this, so I got 2 full tanks of free electricity, which is pretty cool because I've never seen a gas station give out gas for free. And sadly, after 2 weeks, we had to face the reality that we had to go back home and start the 16-hour journey all over again. I won't bore you and I'll only show you the first charge on the way back. In Vancouver, we found a free DC fast charger. It only charged at 60 kilowatts, which meant we had almost a full hour to go get some food and walk around Vancouver for a little bit. And shout out to Canada once again for the free electrons. I'm skipping the rest of the drive home because it was uneventful and I know we all want to get to the analysis and summary. This is the overall elevation change one way from Salt Lake to Whistler. Over 1,000 miles and over 30,000 feet in elevation gain and loss along the journey. Now I'm finally going to get to the analysis and summary. So the total road trip's 2,818 miles, and we consumed 868 kilowatt hours of energy. That's an average efficiency of 3.25 miles per kilowatt hour, which is pretty good given the EPA efficiency of this 2022 Ioniq 5 all-wheel drive is 2.94. We spent a total of 33 and a half hours driving on the highway. And now what everybody wants to know most is how much time did you spend charging? We spent 4.7 hours total at DC fast chargers. And we definitely could have been more efficient and gotten this under 4 hours, but a lot of the time we were going to the bathroom, eating food, making breakfast, shopping for stuff, so we weren't in that much of a hurry. So that's an overall ratio of drive to charge time of 7.1. So every 7.1 hours of driving we charged for 1 hour. With more time-efficient planning and stretching it out further and running down in lower range, this could have been up in the 8 ratio. But what that boils down to on a road trip basis, as you saw in this video, is it's essentially drive 2 hours, charge for 15 minutes, drive 2 hours, charge for 15 minutes, and continue that cycle. Because it's most efficient to stay in the 10 to 80% range in the battery, because the car charges the fastest when the battery is the lowest. Once you get above 80%, it starts to charge a lot slower. We spent a total of $292 charging. That comes out to an average of 34 cents a kilowatt hour. And just by observation as we were driving, the average gas cost seemed to be around $4. It was closer to $3.50 in Utah and Idaho, and then got all the way up to $4.50 in Washington and in Canada. So had we taken our other car, which is a 2018 Subaru Impreza, it's rated for 37 miles per gallon on the highway, but going at fast speeds and having the bikes on the back, I think would have dumped the gas mileage down to 32. That would have cost us $352 for this same road trip, which is more than the electric car. And to be even more fair, a 2022 Crosstrek is probably the best comparison to this Ioniq. It's very similar in size, it's also all-wheel drive, and it's the same year car. That one I estimate would have gotten 28 miles per gallon on this road trip, which would have been a total of $403. And for the gas cars, that's not even factoring in after nearly 3,000 miles of driving, you'd be halfway to your next oil change. This actually surprised me. I know a lot of times DC fast charging can be more expensive than you think. So I thought our gas car would have saved us more money on this trip, but it actually turned out to be the opposite. So that was a cool plus also of taking the EV on this road trip. This was by far my longest EV road trip ever, and to be honest, I was a little hesitant to take the EV on this road trip to start. So here's my main takeaways. First, charging is fast. This Ioniq 5 charges really fast. The fact that we can pull up to a charging station and grab a quick bite to eat and go to the bathroom and already be back up to 80% in 15 minutes, this is a very road tripable car. I would definitely do this again. Second, there's almost no waiting at DC fast chargers on this road trip. We only had to wait the one time for 10 minutes in Seattle. I know lots of people that wait longer than 10 minutes to go fill up gas at their car every week in the Costco gas line. Most of the time we were the only ones at the charger, and if not, there was always a fast charger open. So that was a really nice surprise that it was this easy to charge at the DC fast charging stations. Third, the chargers are extremely reliable. I didn't come across a single issue with an Electrify America charger this whole road trip for 3,000 miles. I know some other networks have some problems, but I'd highly recommend Electrify America. It's as worry-free and reliable as it can be and made this road trip really easy. And fourth, electrons can be free. If you do some research and look around, there's free chargers all over the country, Canada and the US. This really made the most sense when we were local because we had to leave the charger overnight because it was at a level 2 charger, but you can save quite a bit of money on a road trip if you're in the same place for a few days by finding free chargers. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it interesting and maybe it changed your mind a little bit that EVs can definitely be road trippable cars.